So thank you all for joining us this evening for an engaging discussion on deciphering recipes and publishing cookbooks, followed by the Thai cooking demonstration with UVA alumna Kate Hopewell. My name is Mary Beth Smith, and I'm the Regional Engagement Officer for various UVA clubs in California, one being the UVA Club of Los Angeles. So it's great to see so many who's on this call. Before we begin, I'm going to highlight just a few technical aspects of this virtual event. So as you can see, the event is being recorded. You can see that in the upper left-hand corner. We are recording it so that we can send the video out to people who were unable to make it, or basically to all attendees, so that you can see the virtual cooking demonstration, since Kate will be doing it rather quickly, and most people will likely want to do this after the event itself. Your video is optional. You're more than welcome to keep it on. And your mic is already muted. If we could keep that muted throughout the presentation, that'd be great. And then when Kate begins talking, you'll just see her face on the Zoom, and you can enable the speaker view, which you can see in the top right-hand corner, so that you will see her square on the Zoom in a bigger setting. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to submit that question in the chat box located on the bottom of your screen. And Joanna and I will monitor that and ask Kate some questions throughout the presentation while she's cooking. But first, I'd like to introduce Joanna. Joanna is the UVA Club of Los Angeles president, and she will say a few words and then introduce our presenter, Kate.
Thanks, Mary Beth. So Joanna Calabrese, I'm Com School 2004 and out here in Los Angeles along with Kate. First of all, huge thanks to Mary Beth for all the behind the scenes logistics. I know this comes across like super easy and emails come to you no problem, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So big thanks to Mary Beth and that whole team for making this happen. Thanks for all the alumni and friends that are here. I think this is a really fun way to get together when we can't get together. And I am very, very happy to introduce my dear friend, Kate Malay Hopewell. She is a 2005 media studies major, a Lonnie s'more maker extraordinaire. She introduced me to the amazing food scene here in LA. So she's kind of my go-to when it comes to anything Los Angeles food scene, or really food in general. She's an amazing cook. And a side note, she's my AKO sorority sister. So I gotta give a little love for that. Before I pass it over to Kate, I wanted to also thank Kate's husband, Stuart, who is behind the scenes doing all the cool Hollywood stuff. So it's gonna streamline from Kate chatting in front of her amazing cookbook collection to her cooking in front of her stove. And that's all thanks to Stuart, who's recording with his cool Hollywood gadgets. So without further ado, I'll let Kate take it away.
Thank you so much, Joanna, Mary Beth, the entire UVA alumni engagement support staff, the community, and all of you for being here with me this evening. I'm really looking forward to this. After 10 years of event management experience, including supporting regional alumni clubs at UVA and UCLA, and almost 5 years as the manager of the UCLA Chancellor's Residence, overseeing 80 to 90 events per year. I'm a cookbook recipe tester. So I just have always loved working with food, starting in high school, and then in the 2008 recession, in between jobs, and whenever my memory is wiped of how very hard it is, I've worked front of house and back of house in restaurants, like you might be familiar with Charlottesville's The Biltmore, Bijou, and Cassis, and Roberta's Pizza in Los Angeles, and Milk Bar twice as one of the first hires for the original East Village location and also its new Los Angeles location. Whew. So I am an ambitious home cook with the 80 cookbooks you see behind me and a pantry filled to the brim with international ingredients. And in a little bit, I'll tell you how the recipe testing happens and what goes into it. But first, let's talk cookbooks, because we have to eat, right? And especially now more than ever, we're eating at home, unfortunately. And at least speaking for myself and other cookbook collectors I spent time with, they're more than useful resources. They're wonderful reading. And I will get to that. But often I think, oh, I really want to do something creative with zucchini, and flip to the far end of the index and start the search for inspiration one book at a time. That's what we do. So just know how serious a cookbook collector you're talking to before you ask for their favorite. Because I immediately regretted asking this of NPR Good Foods Evan Kleiman. I offered to help her with a yard sale on a hot summer day last year. And she looked at me like, how can you even ask that question? And if you were to ask me that question with my modest collection, I don't even know what I would answer. I would say, well, what do you want to cook? What's your budget? How ambitious are you? So cookbooks are just a kind of a niche thing. And I'm very happy to be in this community. I was once at a cookbook talk at the wonderful LA cookbook shop, now serving in downtown's Chinatown. And I was with Walter Mansky and his wife. They're lovely. I had served them at Roberta's a few times. And he mentioned to me that his personal collection was about twice the store's inventory. And I completely believe it. So yeah, we are nerds. Cookbooks are surprisingly inexpensive for what goes into them. Publishers don't have to pay a lot for them. Newer authors are typically not really well compensated. The recipe testing and photographer might be paid for by the publisher, or it might come out of the author's advance. It's been described to me all around as opaque. And even well-established authors often pay for their publicity tour travel expenses. A prominent food writer for an East Coast newspaper was planning to do a book talk in Los Angeles, and she and I were going to meet up, and she canceled just because she couldn't justify it. And I completely understand. And that's the sound of my rice cooker getting finished. So my husband's helping. So why do people do cookbooks? Because they love it. They want to leave behind a legacy for their food writing, their restaurant, what have you. And they feel it's important work. And those are all very good reasons to me. So there are different kinds of cookbooks, and I hope to walk you through what might work best for you. I think of 5 kinds, and they are tomes, regional cuisines, restaurants, chefs, and special interests. So tomes are encyclopedic. You've got The Joy of Cooking, The Best Recipe Cookbook, The Food Lab. I love Joy of Cooking for timing, especially with shellfish, which is tricky. And it runs in my family that we eat a lot of shellfish. And I actually had a terrible dream about breaking down a live Dungeness crab last night from the cookbook testing that I'm doing. It was very scary. Anyway, mine has 18 variations on chowder and seafood stews, which when I'm done with the Thai cookbook testing, all sound great as long as they're not crab. And if you are open to restaurant curbside pickup, definitely recommend Fishing with Dynamite in Manhattan Beach. They have the best chowder in the entire world. And my parents are from New England and probably cringing hearing that, but I might, they're visiting soon. I might have them try it with me. Joy of Cooking also has 107 pages for only vegetables, which is more than a tenth of the cookbook. So this is not your grandparents' copy anymore with the Waldorf salad and Jello mold and lamb 20 ways. Don't worry. I would get the newest version and just really delve into it. The Best Recipe Cookbook, strong with technique, with really detailed drawings. And I also think that its breads are really easy and they're explained well. And breads seem to be popular lately. To that end, the Food Lab is scientific, helpful for knowing the hows and the whys, kind of almost to a fault, because it's so much reading. I've actually fallen asleep to it more than once. Oh, I am so embarrassed to admit that. So parents, this could be fun bedtime reading for your kids and for you. they'll be asleep in no time. Regional cuisines are a favorite. You got Edna Lewis for the American South, Marcella Hazan for Italian, Mater Joffrey for Southern and Eastern Asian, Magnus Nielsen for all of your Nordic cuisine. Specific books of mine that I love: Caucasus by Olia Hercules, Cook Korean by Robin Ha, actually a graphic novel and cookbook in one. And I know that sounds wild, but I adore it, and all of the recipes work. And Between Harlem and Heaven by J.J. Johnson and Alexander Smalls, such a talented duo. Alexander Smalls was a really successful opera singer before he opened a restaurant, and they deservedly received a Jane Spirit Award for that book. And restaurant cookbooks, I'm going to kind of talk a lot about. They're almost always written by ghostwriters. A chef would never have the time. And unless they're baking, they don't often measure. And it's very difficult to scale down what serves 200 covers to a party of 2 on a Tuesday night. So the ghostwriter does their best to recreate the chef's vision. These tend to be near impossible to source and to cook, unless you have a Vitamix, a dehydrator, and what I like to call your personal forager who leads ayahuasca ceremonies on the weekends. So some of my LA favorites are the Scarpetta cookbook with very good pasta dough recipes. They're very eggy, very Northern Italian, and very reliable. But you're talking about like a dozen eggs to make a pound of pasta. It's a lot of egg yolk to work with. They taste good. I love the Baco cookbook, as Chef Joseph Centeno makes his recipes very relatable, but that's mostly because his wife wrote it. She is a food writer, Betty Halleck, and she's a really prolific food writer, and she's just done a wonderful job of translating the food that I love at the restaurant so much. And so you can count on that. Look at that.
This was a gift from Kate to me, I think, for my first birthday out here. It's my absolute favorite restaurant in Los Angeles. It's the best restaurant. And it's like, if I could point to where it is, it's like a mile that way. So
Yay! Oh, that makes me so happy. Yeah, it's a really cookable cookbook, and those are hard to come by. And so are the Mozza cookbooks. I recommend those as well. Nancy Silverton has great writers working for her. And if you have a sweet tooth, baking at Republique is very good. And I mentioned the Manskys earlier. They're the nicest, and these recipes turn out perfectly, especially the cookies. So if you love cookies. For those of you from Northern California, if you're on here, I really enjoyed attempting to cook from the State Bird Provisions cookbook, but I'd rather fly up from Burbank and go to State Bird in the Progress myself, because it would cost about the same as it does to source a single recipe from that book. And I really enjoyed the Nepenthe cookbook from the historic restaurant in Big Sur. Its history is crazy. For example, the granddaughter who wrote it never once mentioned schooling. It was a commune. Her mom had her out of wedlock, and her beatnik father disappeared. But he later returned to marry a family friend, and they lived out their lives on the commune, not their own like daughter and granddaughter. So best burger with a view and a story you'll ever get. So what I am trying to convey is that cookbooks are wonderful reading. 3 ghostwriters have described similar situations to me, of working with the chefs who don't measure anything, which with savory isn't surprising, baking being different. And they talked about really having to hustle to get a measuring cup under a sauce or a timer started as they observed the chefs. But the wildest story I've heard, one ghostwriter told me they received a project at the very last minute because no one else had been successful with it yet. And they were so eager to break into ghostwriting that they took it on. I would do the same thing if someone told me even how crazy this is. So this was for an internationally famous chef with Michelin stars and television and presence, all of it. And they knew almost nothing about the particular cuisines. They just researched it. All of the recipes and the stories in the cookbook are written by the ghostwriter. So I would be thrilled to take a job like that, like I said, and it means you're invisible in the process. You actually get paid more for invisibility. I have been told it gets harder to take that invisibility in time. And I've mostly been in events, so working behind the scenes, I'm used to it, and I think I would be okay, but I don't know. I hope to find out. And then last but not least, oh, no, second to last, chef cookbooks tend to be as much about storytelling as they are about sharing recipes, and are also rarely written in full by the chef. But the best ones do reflect the chef's efforts, struggles, and hard-won successes. I've bought them because I've responded to the restaurants and their cooking and who I think they are and who they are if I've met them. I love Down South by New Orleans' Donald Link, who will demystify the roux for you and give you an excuse to skip your workouts forever, because stirring a dark roux, it takes an hour of muscle and not a minute less. LA Sun by Roy Choi, which reads like a novel and has me putting cheese on instant ramen forever and ever. I love Root to Leaf by Stephen Satterfield of Miller Union out of Atlanta. Just a beautifully done book with a surprising story behind it. Kind of a hand to heart read, and also a subtle and enticing encouragement to eat seasonally. And he did write his, and so did Edward Lee. I love his Smoke and Pickles. He's a chef out of Louisville and now Washington, D.C. And he has an English degree from NYU. And he followed up with this wonderful nonfiction piece, Buttermilk Graffiti, about the interesting immigrant cultures and their foods, and immigrant cultures coming together in unlikely places all around the US. It's a really nice book. So yeah, if you enjoy autobiography, history, nonfiction generally, cookbooks are surprisingly deep. And then here we are, last but not least. The special interests are like your paleo, vegan, fermentation. I have sausage fermenting for day 2.5, 2 rooms over. So non paleo, very good. Anything by Otto Lengi for vegetables. And I do have the Noma Guide to Fermentation, but I kind of bypass it by sending direct messages to the author on Instagram, and he actually responds, because I like to ferment fruit and now meat, but I'm just following instructions because it's my job. So for anyone who wants to get into any kind of food publishing role, what I did is I told everyone that I know that I wanted to work on cookbooks in any way, that I hoped to recipe test. I had recipes I developed that I could contribute. I'd be happy to write the index, which is such an important job. Yes, it is a job. It's very common now to only list categories in the table of contents, like meat, vegetables, desserts. And so if you want to find that amazing zucchini recipe, you really need a great index. And so I went to book festivals, food festivals, any kind of cookbook talk, and handed out a business card with a link to my, and also a scan code to my cookbook website, where I write about cookbooks in a positive way, because I don't think anyone would hire me if I was critical of the process. But you have to follow up. It's been described to me over and over as a hustle. And I got a great mentor in Andrew Friedman, who wrote Chef's Drugs and Rock and Roll, something like that. And he has been so generous with his time, and really he's given me hard advice when I didn't necessarily want to hear it. Like, I got into NYU grad school for food studies, and he said, don't go. I saw him when I was there for the orientation session, and he said, you don't need this. Just keep doing what you're doing. It'll happen. And a year after giving out my card and doing the usual, I would really love to do this work talk with a really prolific LA food writer and ghostwriter, he reached out to me and gave me this job. And so that's all there is to it. I also had a wonderful opportunity through my dear friend Juan Estevez 05. He and I are good friends, and at his birthday, I was doing the tell everyone what I want to do thing. And one of his friends hired me to work on her cookbook. It's Hot Cheese, coming out September 1st by Polina Chesnikova. So look forward to that. And everything was delicious, I should add. So yeah, and the wonderful thing about this particular project that I'm doing right now with the Thai cuisine is that I happen to be already fairly familiar with Pacific Rim cuisines. My parents lived in Hawaii before I was born. Yeah, bummer for me. But they really picked up all of the cuisines that come together in Hawaii. And I think of my dad's manapua, and my mom's stir fries and curries were amazing. And my brother and sister both cook brilliantly. And if they're on this call, I say hi. But yeah, my mom, just with all of her cooking, I think we were all really inspired to be home cooks. And that's where it came from. So what do I do as a recipe tester? I take it really seriously, like any other job. I time everything and write it down. I have to catch errors, like an ingredient listed in the ingredient list, but not included in the instructions, or listed in the ingredient list in one order, but the instructions in a different order. Or I test on my own a step that I think would be more efficient or appealing or healthy, because there's been a lot of frying. So this requires a certain annoying personality, as you can imagine, being that meticulous. I do some light copy editing, but knowing a copy editor will finish out the book at the publishing company. Mostly, I feel like I disinfect, cook, wash dishes, write notes, store dishes, disinfect, wash more dishes, store more dishes, and start that all over again. It's a lot of that, but luckily I don't mind, because I'm just so grateful I waited so long to get to do this. So today we're cooking Thai curry. I'm not Thai, obviously. I've never even been to Thailand. I just love the food, and every summer I've cooked it over and over and over again every day. And I've also used it to my personal benefit. Several years ago, I decided I was dissatisfied with my spice tolerance, or lack thereof. So I started going to LA's very spicy Thai restaurants, Jitlada, Night Market, elsewhere in LA's Thai Town and the Valley, and just ordering spicier and spicier. Capsaicin binds to our nerves' pain receptors and sends a warning to our brains, which respond with endorphins and dopamine, creating a false sense of euphoria, which is often followed by kind of a rage. So I cannot recommend this if you're just starting to date someone. It's not going to go well at all. But no better way to go about changing your palate than with lemongrass and lime leaf and coconut milk. And yeah, I eventually adapted. So the dish as I make it is going to be hot, but not Thai hot, but hot. And just use more coconut milk and less curry paste if you want to keep it really mild. So I sent you, talking about deciphering recipes, I sent you similar curry recipes from the Pok Pok and Night Market cookbook. And these cookbooks are really difficult to source and difficult to make. And I want to quickly go over how I read them. So curry paste and Pok Pok, just buy the tin stuff. Hopefully you did. It's wonderful. I do not love making curry paste from scratch, but my brother's really good at it. And again, if you're watching, hi Ben. Palm sugar is unnecessary. It's easily substituted with granulated sugar or light brown sugar. And the cookbook I'm working on only uses these, no palm. And I'm grateful for that because it's a very thick, sticky paste. It's very firm. It's just hard to work with. I do think lime leaf is worth using, but you can substitute with lime zest, no problem. And fish balls, I have some in my fridge right now. I love them. They are fish meatballs. So it's white fish that's been broken down and reconstituted with starch, like tapioca starch. And they puff up when you boil them. And I think they're delightful. And they're also shrimp balls, which are the same thing. You can find them at Asian markets in the refrigerated or frozen section. And if you have a 99 ranch available to you, they have really fun varieties, like stuffed with fish roe, curried style. You can tell. I could really keep talking about that, but I'm moving on. About basil. So I feel that sweet and Thai basil, doesn't really make a massive difference. But purists will say that holy basil is really something special. It's very spicy. Thai basil is sweet, but you really get this strong licorice flavor from it. And then sweet basil is sweet and lovely. And I use basil very liberally. A lot of Thai recipes will call for galangal, and that's going to appear in pretty much any curry paste that you buy in a tin. And it's pretty much interchangeable with ginger in a recipe. So just go ahead and use your ginger. As for using eggplant in cooking, the Pok Pok recipe calls for Thai eggplant. It's about the size of a golf ball and very firm, and I don't really like working with it. I much prefer a small, elongated Japanese or Chinese eggplant. And with eggplant and zucchini and say like summer yellow squash, I recommend salting and leaving them out, slicing, then salting and leaving them out for a while, just to draw out a lot of moisture and wiping off all that salt, wiping off all of that extra water, and then putting it into your dish. And the texture is really nice, and they're not diluting the flavor. And then looking at the Night Market Penang curry recipe, you're fine to use ground spices always, even if they're expired. Who cares? And I think that it can be challenging as a reader. You're thinking to yourself, so I really have to put these whole spices into my coffee grinder and then drink curry coffee for the next month. So don't worry about that. Just get really cheap ground stuff and feel good about it. I'm giving you permission. And it also says that you have to use chunky peanut butter, but I like the creamy stuff. So there you go. So any questions so far for me, because I'm going to switch over to cooking mode very shortly.
I don't see any in the chat box now, but if anybody has a question they'd like to ask, feel free to unmute your microphone and ask Kate before.
Kate, I can ask a question. I have sugar, but I have multiple sugars, like brown, like really like the fancy sugar. Not a good idea, or like regular sugar a better idea? I have multiple sugars.
I would say light brown or granulated,
Okay.
like plain old, yeah. But like the really nice baking sugar. Gosh, I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now. But what you use to sprinkle on top of very good cookies, I would not use that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
I have a
And
question.
Stuart, oh yeah.
Up until about 10 years ago, coconut milk had the coconut oil in it. And I think they started extracting it out. I don't know how long you've been cooking Thai food, but it used to be a way doing a curry dish. We would cook it until the oil separated. Now that they've taken the oil out, do you add coconut oil to your coconut milk when you cook, or you do not?
I appreciate the question. Thank you so much. I can't see your name, but it's a good one because I have not been cooking long enough for that to happen. However, I have read a lot of recipes where it talks about that process of with the coconut oil. So no, I use it straight from the can. I just shake it up really well, but I'm aware of it. And I've been confused because I thought, but this is not happening, you know?
Thank you.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess we're moving to the kitchen, yeah? Everyone ready? Okay, here we go. I think I'm good on this end. Hang on. Okay. So here are the ingredients that I have set up for us. Today I'm cooking with salmon and mango, and I'm doing a red curry. And this could not come together more easily. You're gonna be so pleased. So throwing in a little bit of oil to my pan. And I am also going to put on an apron. Here we go. Because I happen to like my UVA orange dress. All right. So let's get this going. I'm using medium-high heat because curry paste splatters a lot. And so for the two of us tonight, I am going to use, again, this is going to be the spicy version, half of a tin of the Maisie red curry paste and a full can of light coconut milk. For the Thai cookbook project, I've only been using full fat coconut milk, and I'm kind of open to a little break from that. So.
A quick question, because
Yeah.
I'm half chopping, half doing stuff, and someone asked this as well. What type of oil do you recommend? Did you, I feel like you said it, but I'm like multitasking and I do not multitask well when it comes to cooking. What
No,
oil
great. I grabbed my grapeseed because here's why. This is my my vegetable oil, and it's just kind of clunky looking. So grapeseed, canola, or vegetable oil would all be good. I wouldn't recommend olive oil because we're going to bring this kind of to a high temperature, and it's not supposed to go that high. All right, so you can see that it's starting to sizzle. This is why you want to wear either dark colored clothes you don't care about or an apron. And it comes quickly. And it smells so aromatic. Oh, I love the smell. Okay, let me add it just a little bit more. And you can saute for, 1 minute or 5 minutes, doesn't really matter. Thai curry is incredibly forgiving. I mean, I've read recipes all over the board. It's already hitting me in the face. So really, you do have to be careful. I'm used to it though. I'm covered in burns. Comes with the territory. I don't mind. All right. So in the interest of time, I'm going to say that's good. Now I'm going to add my coconut milk. And you stir, 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 stir. And I'm also going to add a half a can of water because that's going to cook off a little bit. But it's just, I find that it's nice for getting all those vegetables cooked through. Okay. So a little bit of water. That goes in the recycling. And then I forgot to pull this out, so I'm sorry for this. This is the lime leaf that I swore was so important. I just throw in a bunch. It's frozen. Yeah, kind of a lot. You have to eat around them unless you trim them into teeny, teeny, tiny little pieces. You don't want to chew into one. It's not going to go over. But they have the most wonderful flavor. Next up, we're going to season this. Oh, go ahead.
We weren't able to find those. I know they're pretty integral. Is it we should wait to find them or to make the recipe?
Nah, just use lime zest. You're
Okay.
totally fine using lime zest. And I have many times. Just one thing to expect if you do use lime zest, though, is that it will discolor your vegetables just a little bit, like green beans. They'll turn a little bit brownish. There we are. But yeah, I understand that it's hard to find. Then I have a little bit of lemongrass here. So I'm throwing that in, but I want to show you how to process lemongrass because it is something you kind of have to be shown. So here's the lemongrass stalk. And what you do, go at the end, cut that off, and then you're going to peel off these outer layers. And you can use these in the curry. They'll add a lot of fantastic flavor. But keep peeling and peel until you get to this. It's very tender. It won't feel like the rest of the stalks that you've got around it. So, ooh, caught on the camera. What I'm going to do first off, and you cannot eat these stalks. You have to pull these out just like the lime leaves or eat around them. But you take this very tender little stalk and it slices like butter. And then you add that. It imparts a really nice flavor. And there's already lemongrass in your curry paste. So if you can't find this, it's okay. I just like to add more. And once it starts to get to that, harder stalk again, you're done. So there that is. All right, now we got to season it with fish sauce and sugar. So it's boiling away right now. It's doing great. I'm giving it a stir. Kind of scraping around the edges. Thank you, California Natural Light, for this. So it's really pretty. And so as much as I talked about cooking from recipes, this is about not cooking with a recipe at all. So what you're gonna do is take your fish sauce and start pouring in just a little bit. There's already a little natural saltiness to the curry because of the shrimp paste that's in it. So here we go. Just do a little taste. I have to blow like 8,000 times. And then you decide, do I want it more salty or is this salty enough? That works. Now for the sugar. And so this is, again, you get to decide how to season your food. I probably just added about 2 teaspoons. So let me stir, and then we taste again. How much fish sauce did I add? Oh, maybe a teaspoon. Not very much. This particular red curry paste already has a pretty nice saltiness to it.
Can I ask
There we go. Yes, please.
what we can do with a substitution for the fish sauce if there's a shellfish allergy?
Yes, definitely. And also for my vegans and vegetarians, and I really appreciate your mentioning this so that I can reach out, soy sauce or tamari. So what you would normally, a soy sauce, or if you are vegan, I guess, yeah, tamari is the substitution without soy. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Sorry for my slurping. And now the vegetables go in and everything else. And something that's kind of fun about the mango is that it provides its own sweetness. So I didn't need as much sugar as I might normally put in. I would normally put in kind of a lot. So I really like, you know, like Thai restaurant takeout. It's just, yeah, you can tell I love this food. And then the green beans, onions, zucchini. And these will all take about 10 minutes. So everything that I did up to the point of adding the green beans, that can simmer for as long as you feel like it. I've read recipes where you can have it sit there for an hour. The curry is just kind of happy to bubble away. It only develops more and more flavor. And I have my red onions. I really like my alliums a lot. And get those mixed in. Good. And now I have a little container to put my things in. I have a little bit of bell pepper. I don't love it, so I don't use that much of it. Got zucchini here. You can see it's starting to get very full, and I haven't even added the salmon yet. But I'm about to. So the salmon will actually be the very last thing that I add before, well, the garnishes. The basil and cilantro will be very, very last. But I like to let the vegetables really get nicely cooked because if you're using a protein, I would like to imagine that you've got it kind of cut into bite-sized pieces. I don't know if I specified that, and if I didn't, I'm terribly sorry. But you want it relatively small, and it will cook quickly, as this is very hot. So,
good question. You're using salmon, which may not, take as long to cook or doesn't need to cook as much. If you were to use chicken, let's say, or beef, do you, brown it before, or would you just cut it in small pieces and just cook it longer in the broth?
That's a great question. For chicken, it depends on the cut. For boneless, skinless chicken breast, yeah, I would wet brine it all day. That's just my preferred way of working with that particular cut. For chicken thigh, I would throw it in, but it would be about the same as salmon, actually. And you'll see the size of the chunks of salmon that I do, but I just monitor it, and again, you just, you feel it. With chicken, you just press down on it, and if it's firm, you know. With beef, that's so much more forgiving in the way of your FDA recommended cook times. And I don't cook a lot of beef, to be honest with you. And I think my husband's very sad about that. But I'm about to cut into the salmon, so you'll see that I actually do fairly big chunks. So here we go. I bought, actually, I got a little cut happy earlier. I bought a, how do I move this one? I bought a salmon steak just because it looked a lot better. And so I'm going to remove the skin. This is not going as well as I would have hoped because of the bones still in it. Oh, that's why. Everyone's probably like, don't cut yourself. Here we go. Usually with salmon skin, you can just kind of rip it up at a point. There we go. Now I'm getting some traction. I'm hacking it up, but I'm trying to be quick. And don't throw away your salmon skin. Save it, fry it. It's one of my favorite snacks. I really love it. So I am doing fairly big pieces like that. And I'm going to lightly salt them. And add them. Yeah, in COVID, I've not had my knives sharpened, and I'm a little sad about it. Here we go. See, that's, can you see the way it can peel up? So that's what you're kind of hoping for. There we go. All right, so tiny bit of salt after I wash my hands. And that simmer is perfect right now. What I'm seeing, I'm very happy with. And I like my vegetables fairly crisp. So if you like yours further cooked through, you know, just keep letting them go. And you're welcome to use frozen vegetables too. Frozen green beans, you can throw in anything. All right, grab the salt. Here we go, just a little sprinkling. Salt is flavor, so is fat. Fat is flavor. It's probably my favorite flavor. Here we go. So let me grab some tongs. And I'm done with that. So I'm gonna put these in. And let them really sink in. Make sure they're getting some of the sauce on their backsides. Yeah, just I like to nestle them. I'm going to regret this salmon steak decision because we're going to be eating some bones tonight. Oh, that's my piece where I forgot to take the skin off. That's fine, I'll eat it. No problem. So just a few more minutes for that to cook, and it's done. And then we'll top it with a bunch of basil and cilantro. And am I missing anything?
Do you mind
I don't-
letting us know what type of cookware you're using for this?
This is Gotham steel. This is really nice, non-stick. It's what? Oh,
I was just
my husband saying it's
that
also
was really
cheap.
nice, and so we were curious and wanted to get recommendations.
Yeah, no, this is like as seen on TV, but it cleans really easily. It's surprisingly great. We have this really nice stainless steel set, and this is what I reach for all the time. So yeah, it's definitely not some fancy thing. You can get it at Costco.
I've got my apron on right now because I'm attempting to cook all of this. And just out of curiosity, this seems like the easiest like Thai beginner, but after all the cooking you've been doing on your Thai cookbook, what is your favorite? Do you have a favorite recipe? Is that like picking a child? I don't know. But out of all the different ones you've been testing out, which one's like your go-to kind of Thai that we could find in like a restaurant if we were to go out and get Thai food?
Oh, that's such an interesting question, because my favorite recipes have been what you cannot get at a restaurant. There was a beautiful beef massaman curry. I did enjoy that one a lot. And I don't normally really go for sour flavors. Sorry, I'm going to turn this off because it's done. That's how fast it was. I can just tell it's done. So the the surprise for me was a kind of like a pad thai, but made with Brussels sprouts, and it was so herbaceous and just it was bean sprouts and Brussels sprouts. It came together really well. I probably shouldn't share too much about what's in the cookbook, but when it comes out, I told them they need to use that on the book tour, because that one's by far I think my most surprise favorite, and it was really easy to put together. Gosh, it's been 80 recipes, so it's kind of hard also to quickly produce very favorites. But I don't know. How about you? Oh, I did make the party wings. Yeah, there were some really, really good chicken wings. They were tasty. Yes.
Hey, everyone is commenting on how much of a pro you are. I'm over here like hoping things don't burn or that I don't over or undercook anything, but you made that look very, very easy.
Well, I've done this so many times because I love it so much. Yeah, and here I'm gonna just start pulling these out of the. Yeah, I have no temperature sensitivity left in my hands, so I don't recommend doing what I'm doing right now, guys. Just don't do it. Well, you can't eat them, honey. They have to go. Oh, thank you for the question. Yes, and I will pull out the lemongrass too. And so what I do with the fresh herbs at the end is that, and I just stir them in, but not that much. I go to serving really, really quickly. And I use, gosh, I'm doing lots of cleaning. Now I've touched the floor. I have to wash my hands. So that's a lot of fresh basil. And it makes me very happy. So I go really, really big with herbs. And with the cilantro, you can use stem and all, but basil, you want to pull it off the stem. And I'm probably overdoing it. But that said, let me find a good example. Oh, here's one. I have it. See, there's the basil flower. That's edible and it's delicious, and it's kind of like my favorite treat, as the little flower floating in my curry. Makes me very, very happy. All right, more questions. I think we're about at time, but I'm totally happy to field anything else you got on your mind.
I may have missed it, but did you put mango in there?
I did. Yeah, I used a little less sugar because of the mango. Yes, I got inspired by a little a Thai cafe in Kona, Hawaii years ago with my family. And I ate this like 2 days in a row. So yeah, salmon and mango curry, red curry specifically, but also I love salmon and green curry. So there's just no going wrong for me.
I've got one other question.
Please.
So out in California, with a lot of our Thai recipes, they recommend using sliced a red, like a Fresno chili, or some type of chili, or a Thai chili for some spice. Is that?
Ooh.
Yeah. Were you thinking?
Well,
people don't like it with a lot of high heat intensity, or?
Well, Fresnos and Thai chilies have so much variation in the spice level. Recently, I had gotta get these, sorry, pesky herbs down in here. I love Fresnos. They're mild for the most part, but you occasionally get one that's a little up there. But Thai are consistently hotter. I generally don't feel the need using the quantities that I'm using right now to add more heat.
Got it.
And even with the spice tolerance that I've got, it can become kind of unfun. I hate to say it that way. But I mean, I certainly don't mind when I go out to eat. But yeah, I could add Fresnos. I have some in the fridge. I just didn't feel like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, adding, if you love spice, get some Thai chilies. I'll show you what I have. It's, these are fairly well polished off, so I use a lot of Thai chilies in my cooking, and this doesn't look so good. Maybe don't zoom in on those. They've been around for a bit, but yeah, if you love spice, go nuts. So you can see that the herbs are wilting nicely, and it's ready to go. I'm actually going to take it off the heat because I don't want the salmon to keep cooking. But I will pull up the salmon so you can see it's nice and flaky. So here, that one's not flaky because it's on its backside. It's on the fat side. Here we go. So yeah.
Kate, this is Michael. The whole dish looks so colorful and beautiful and delicious.
Thank you so much.
I love how visually beautiful it is. And I'm sure delicious as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to eating it. I really appreciate everyone participating in this. I have to admit, I was a little nervous. And it'll be really nice to sit down and eat and breathe for the first time in an hour.
Well, you nailed it. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kate, for doing this demonstration. It was great. And we couldn't tell you were nervous at all on this end. So and,
I appreciate that. It's very kind.
As we had said earlier, the recording will be sent out to all registrants. So you guys will receive the recording once we get that up, and just look for your email. Keep an eye on that. It'll be coming your way. But yes, thank you again so much. We won't keep you from your dinner. I know you've been in the kitchen for a while, but it was great having everybody tune in, and I hope you guys get the chance to make it yourselves.
Yeah, and you can reach out to me however you want to. I don't know if my email address went out, but it's Kate Malay, KATEMALAY @gmail.com. And I'm always happy to chat cookbooks and answer cooking questions and just generally engage with fellow alumni and friends. So thank you again so very much.
Thank
That
you.
was
That was
awesome.
great. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy your evening.